Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 15th, 2023 Grants Pass City Council meeting. And we start our meeting off with a moment of silence, so please join me for that. Please rise for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, it looks like Rob Pell is absent at the moment. Vanessa Auger is absent and meeting us later for executive session. She's out of town, I think. First off, Small Business Saturday proclamation here. Wait a minute to get that on the screen. There we go. Whereas the City of Grants Pass celebrates its local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community, and whereas, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 33.2 million small businesses in the U.S., small businesses represent 99.7% of firms with paid employees. Small businesses are responsible for 62.7% of the net new jobs created since 1995. And small businesses employ 46.4% of the employees in the private sector in the United States. And whereas 68 cents of every dollar spent at a small business in the United States stays in the local community, and every dollar spent at small businesses creates an additional 48 cents in the local business activity as a result of employees and local businesses purchasing local goods and services. And whereas 72% of consumers reported that Small Business Saturday 2022 made them want to shop and dine at small independently owned retailers and restaurants all year long. And whereas the City of Grants Pass supports its local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And whereas advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now therefore I, Sarah Bristol, Mayor of the City of Grants Pass, do hereby proclaim Saturday, November 25th, 2023 as Small Business Saturday, and urge the residents of our community to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. And I think Josie Malloy from the Chamber of Commerce is here to receive this. Did you want to say a few words, Josie?
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Josie Malloy. I'm the President and CEO for the Grants Pass and Josephine County Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of all the small businesses in Grants Pass and Josephine County, we greatly appreciate this proclamation. I know you guys have been doing it for several years. Small businesses really are the backbone of every community. And I do strongly encourage everyone to come out for Small Business Saturday. We are a neighborhood champion for Small Business Saturday, along with the City of Grants Pass Welcome Center. So I hope to see you all out there, and thank you for supporting small businesses.
Thank you, Josie. All right, our first business item tonight is a resolution to consider a resolution that would award funds for the fall 2023 cycle of the Sustainable Tourism Grant Program. Dana Pierce, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and members of the public. As you said, we're going to be reviewing the Fall 2023 Sustainable Tourism Grant Award recommendations. This resolution would be awarding funds for the fall 2023 cycle of the Sustainable Tourism Grant Program. This resolution will award transient lodging tax funds to 5 grant applicants for tourism promotion. This relates to the council goals by encouraging economic opportunities, designating a portion of that TLT to fund tourism-related projects and promotions. So just a little bit of background. In April, the City Council approved a resolution establishing the Sustainable Tourism Grant Program and allocated $35,000 for awards. In June, the City Council approved 4 applicants for a total of $14,000 in grant funds for the spring cycle. And then the application for the fall cycle, it opened in September, on September 5th, and it closed October 23rd. Our grant review subcommittee, they scored the 5 applications, and we met on November 2nd to discuss the final award recommendations for City Council. These are the recommendations that the committee provided. The first is the Grants Pass High School Band Boosters. They made a request to promote their Pride of the Northwest event in October of 2024. The committee recommends to award them $3,750. The Grants Pass Rotary Club Foundation requested funds to promote their Rotary District Conference in May of 2025. The committee recommended full funding of $5,000. The Grants Pass Downs, also known as the Horsemen's Racing Association, they requested to promote for fall of 2024 their horse racing series. They were also recommended to receive $5,000. The Grants Pass Museum of Art would like to promote an art exhibit in the spring of 2024 featuring the artwork of Ezra Tucker, who's depicting Black Americans during the forming of the Wild West. We recommended $3,750 be awarded for that program. And the final one is the Rogue Valley Classic Cruisers, wanting to promote their event in July of 2024, the Fabulous Charity Car Show. We recommended the $3,500 remaining dollars be awarded to them. So you can see there was a total request came to $25,000, and we're recommending that the remaining $21,000 be awarded. The cost implications, this does come from transient lodging tax, and as I mentioned previously, $35,000 was allocated in FY24. $14,000 was awarded in the spring, and $21,000 would then be distributed in the amounts listed in the previous slide for the fall cycle. These funds are distributed as a reimbursement on eligible receipts. The call to action tonight is at council discretion. You can move to action or consent or add to an additional workshop. Alternatives would be to approve the recommended award funds, modify the recommendation, or deny it. And here's a potential motion.
Thanks, Dana. Council, do you have any questions? Dwayne.
I got a question, because how many people does the Rotary thing bring in?
They were estimating around 750 people.
That'd be nice to know.
DJ.
Sure, it says this in the background, but you had total 5 applicants and 5 awards. There was no more than just the 5 applicants. Okay, thanks.
We did have other people interested, but they didn't apply for this round, so.
Interested or applied?
Just interested. I'm just, sharing that we do have conversations with other people too that are showing interest. So.
Okay, part of the reason of the question is to kind of gauge the success or popularity of this grant program. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
Valerie.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify and make sure that the criteria is based upon advertising and getting people to come from outside of the 50 miles. So any advertising they do through this program has to be outside of our 50-mile
That's
range,
correct. Yeah,
okay.
and that's criteria that the subcommittee is using when they're reviewing the applications.
Okay, and it's been in the past kind of some of the reasons some of them get less is just simply because some of the advertising has been to do local. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Is there anyone from the community who wants to speak on this? No? We'll close public comment and turn it over to council for discussion. Valerie.
Well, I think it's a great program. I think I'm excited to see more people coming and seeing that it's available, and I hope that we can continue it. So I'm going to move to adopt the resolution awarding funds for the fall 2023 cycle of the Sustainable Tourism Grant Program.
Is there a second? DJ? Any discussion on the motion? All right, Valerie, you made the motion to award the funds. How do you vote?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Next up, we're considering a resolution to reallocate some American Rescue Plan Act funds. Hello, Brad.
Good evening. So I'm going to give you an overview of the ARPA request tonight. Amber Neek, our Housing and Neighborhood Specialist, is here tonight, and she has been pretty involved with some of the background on this topic. She's going to come up at the end and add a couple of other pieces to the presentation. But basically, the summary tonight is approving a resolution that would authorize a reallocation of some of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. The city received about $9.3 million, as you know, and in a couple of years ago, the council put those into general categories. Those are kind of in the process of being spent. This is specific to just one of those categories. It relates to the council goals to enhance community safety and to provide cooperative shared leadership involving council staff and community. So some of where this topic tonight is originating, UCAN recently announced that they don't have any funding available to support or operate the warming center this year. This was through a letter that was received a couple of weeks ago. There is a little bit more information in Exhibit A, which is on page 49 of your packet. So, and as you know, UCAN was the lead organizer and operator of the warming center last year. So with their inability to fund or do that this year, and in anticipation of the colder weather coming up, it does leave a gap in services within the community, as well as a gap in funding, since they did help to fund this last year. So at your last meeting, staff briefly during the items from staff at the end of the meeting brought forward just the general concept: would council be in support of reallocating some of these ARPA funds and make them available more or less kind of through a request for proposal process. You didn't vote on it, but you did voice general support to bring it forward. So what we have before you today is essentially moving some of the remaining funds from the public infrastructure and affordable housing category into a new project that would be, excuse me, more general in nature, more broad, but still focused on affordable housing and unhoused programs and services. There is not a specific use proposed for that, but it would move the remaining monies into that general category. So they could support shelters, transitional housing, warming and cooling centers, and other support services for unhoused persons, as long as it's operated, obviously, in compliance with U.S. Treasury rules, which there are a bunch. So the eligible ARPA spending categories include one called public health and negative economic impacts. This was, as you may recall, under ARPA, there's really 4 broad categories, and then within those 4 broad categories, there's some subcategories, and one of those is called public health and negative economic impacts. And within that one, there's a section called disproportionately impacted households. And if you look down on that table there, at the bottom, 3.11, housing support services for unhoused persons is one of the categories that ARPA funds can be used for. So that would be where the eligibility fits. To date, you have approved 2 infrastructure grants for that $1.6 million of ARPA money, Glencrest Cottages and Scoville Senior Housing. So that leaves $67,500 balance in that. Now, those monies haven't been spent, but they have been allocated. So we're really, again, talking about unallocated money of $67,500. So if tonight's resolution is approved, we would proceed with kind of a call for service providers that would be put out to the community. We think we can do it within a week of reallocation approval, and Amber can speak to that more, with applications due 2 weeks after that. We would, send it broadly, but specifically to different religious organizations and other nonprofits, stating that, funds are available to assist with operations and or security services for a warming center. The emergency clause that you approved would, of course, be part of this. That's how the warming centers can be operated. So they would have to meet that criteria of the 32 degrees forecasted, or 28 degrees with the rain. There's different ways that your emergency clause was set up. So if we hit those and the warming center is needed and needs to be stood up, then that's where this would come in. So you can, as well as PATH, Partners Assisting the Homeless, have also offered support around this project should you provide some funding, or even if you don't provide funding, they've been working and talking about this for a while. Here is the budget, if you will, or the allocations for the ARPA money that we currently have approved. So this second, under the general direction, the second category, UGB infrastructure, this is that 1.615 million category. That is where we would pull that unallocated balance from, and then create essentially a new category that would be, that general affordable housing and supportive services. So we talked about this already, but the round one of that funding, $747,500, was the Mid-Road Foundation for the Glencrest Cottages project, and then round two was the $800,000 for home bridging, and that leaves the $67,500 balance. The main date that's driving this, as with all of our ARPA projects, is you have to allocate by December 24 and spend the money by December of 26. So recommendation is to approve the reallocation for moving from the public infrastructure to affordable housing and unhoused program services, but you have alternatives there. You could approve with amendments. You could allocate funding to a completely different project. There's a number of different projects that I showed on a few slides ago. You could deny the reallocation. This is really at the council and local government's discretion.
Thank you, Brad. Council, do you have any questions? Rick?
I think it's a question for Augustus. If we move to approve this tonight, is there any potential impact on our lawsuit?
I don't view this as having any potential impact on our lawsuit, especially because it's for a warming shelter, and that's not really central to our lawsuit.
DJ?
Sure. The way I understood ARPA money was for capital investment, assets, et cetera, and it sounds like this is now going to create a new category for operations or support, right? So that doesn't quite equate my understanding of what the ARPA was designed for in the first place. Could you help me make that connection?
Yeah, so the ARPA funding, they issued interim rules. And those interim rules were the ones that you made your original allocation under. And then in 2022, they came out with final rules, which expanded the categories. And under those final rules, it did offer, the opportunity to as long as you're talking about public health, and under public health, you're talking about people that are disproportionately affected. And so it is limited. I mean, it's not like you could use, to fund all kinds of different operations, but we do think that under the final rule, it does allow for this type of funding.
Is it possible to expand on those limitations?
I'm sorry?
Is it possible for you to expand on those limitations? So I understand there's a bar to reach. There are limitations for operations and support. Could you help me understand those limitations a little better?
You want to jump in, JC? Or,
I can,
yeah.
wow. So to my understanding, they've changed the rules now 3 times. They keep adding to what's available. It's hundreds of pages. If you want exactitudes of specifically the verbiage in which allows for this, we can look that up. But like you said, there's places in there that as long as you are falling within a category like you showed you, the 3.11 or whatever it was, it does allow for you to do some certain operational things, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a capital expenditure.
And then just to follow up with you, that we're certain that this allocation falls rightly in line with those limitations?
Well, yes, because if we're talking about what we've been contemplating to do in the past with these ARPA funds as it relates to either a campground of some kind or a shelter of some kind, that fell squarely within mostly capital improvements. The reason for the change in these rules is because it's becoming apparent that some governments are having difficulties spending these monies. And the Treasury, the U.S. Treasury, intended to broaden the scope. This, I feel, would fall within the scope of supporting vulnerable communities, such as homeless individuals, and that is actually explicitly called out in the final rule.
Other questions? No, thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wanted to speak on this issue? Please step forward and state your name and let us know whether or not you live in the city.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Julie Thomas, and I'm the president of PATH, Partners Assisting the Homeless. We're a local grassroots advocacy and working group committed to making positive impact on homelessness, mental illness, and addiction. Our mission is a collaboration of community partners to find sustainable solutions to help people transition from homelessness to a self-sufficient future in Josephine County. So this is right up our alley. The need for a warming center may always exist in our community for those without proper heating in their homes, but our need is even greater now. It's very unique. As long as the injunction is in place that allows people to camp overnight in our parks, on our streets, and in their cars, we have an even greater responsibility to ensure their safety and well-being as well. So we're in a unique situation. So I personally am here on behalf of PATH to say that if you approve the reallocation of ARPA funds to support the operation and security for a warming center, that PATH will provide all the support it can within its means. We're already working in collaboration with many other local nonprofits and organizations who also support the effort of a warming center and who are committed to playing an active role in making that successful. Many of these organizations couldn't be here tonight, but they've submitted either emails or letters to you in advance. I hope you get an opportunity to take a look at those. I have permission to say who many of them are. So obviously PATH and MINT, Josephine County Public Health, Newman United Methodist Church, UCAN, and the Josephine County Food Bank, who reiterated today that they're very happy to pledge food support for the warming center. So what happens then, right? Once funding is approved, we will mobilize with our partners and our volunteers to ensure the warming center project is a success until we don't need this anymore. Thank you in advance for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yes, there is. Hi, I'm Mike Pelfrey, city resident. The way I look at what was just presented is just another way of taking more tax dollars from local citizens and applying it to what I refer to as the homeless industrial complex. So the issue that I have with allocating more money is, first of all, they have tents, they have sleeping bags. We're not in the Arctic Circle. we're not this isn't living in, we're not in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Our climate is not that terrible. So first of all, I think there's absolutely zero need for a warming shelter in our community. And if there was a need, why aren't these nonprofits, and we have a lot of them, why aren't they pulling their resources together? Some of them probably have brick and mortar space. Why aren't they housing some of the homeless? Why aren't they warming them in their own buildings? Why aren't they adjoining their resources and trying to fix a problem instead of actually feeding off of it? Thank you.
Is there anyone else? All right, we'll close public comment and turn it back to council. Valerie.
Well, I do think it's important to offer warmth in this weather, and I know last year we had a warming center. We also had an emergency shelter last year, and we have nothing this year. So I am going to move to approve the reallocation of the ARPA public infrastructure affordable housing to affordable housing and unhoused programs and services in the amount of $67,500.
Is there a second? Brian? Any discussion on the motion? Rob?
So last year, when council gave, there was $25,000 to the Ramsey shelter, and we gave it out of ARPA money. Well, I'm not sure if it was out of ARPA money, but we talked about how, for the most part, council said we're not interested in using certainly city funds, but I also believe available funds for operations. And I believe at the time I said that I would do it one time, that I would support operations one time, funding for operations. But here we are again, and we're being asked to do it a second time, and who knows how many more times. But I'm having trouble with this for that reason. You know, it's to me, this was more for longer term or capital projects, and again, we're back here doing operations, which council pretty much has said we weren't interested in doing. So I'm having trouble with this.
Joel?
So one of the things that strikes me is the cooperation between different agencies in the city, and also a gateway to other even more meaningful services, such as treatment for addictions. I know last year, having visited several of the warming shelters and actually served at a couple of them, and one of them in particular, there were several people that were addicted to some hard narcotics, and there was no services offered to them, and they were turned loose on the street high. And that's not right. I think everybody would agree that's not right. When you get them into a situation like this, you need to at least offer them a gateway to what you say, to a better life, not an even better life. And that didn't happen. And so if we do approve this, I would encourage, first off, the nonprofits. We've had several requests from different nonprofits. And I know everybody has overhead they need to fund, but I would hope that they could be efficient with these funds. And the other thing is if people come to it, that they actually, with that collaboration with nonprofits, don't get turned loose on the street high. That's just not appropriate. It hurts people and enables them and doesn't help them. So it's a challenge, I know.
Brian?
Thank you. I would prefer that we didn't have to spend this money on this tonight. I would prefer that the nonprofits were more collaborative and pooled their resources so we weren't in this position. Unfortunately, we don't control the nonprofits. We have homeless people in our parks, and we're in a position to improve the situation for the winter. I mean, for one example, the Gospel Rescue Mission, they have open beds all the time, up to 50% of their space, and those beds are going unused, unfortunately. I wish they weren't, but they are, and that's just the situation we're in, and we only have so much control. But there are other resources coming in. It's not just us. This letter from UCAN said they're able and willing to provide cots, blankets for up to 75 people, meals, resources, wraparound services, volunteer coordination, outreach, transit setup, and other things. So we're not doing the whole lift here. You know, volunteers are going to be there, staffing it. We're being a partner, so I'll be voting yes.
Dwayne.
I have to agree with Rob, and I was hoping to see this money go towards more sustainable housing, like the missions, I think it's a Hope House or whatever, more long-term infrastructure for housing. This money's almost gone, and what's going to happen next year? I mean, they asking for more money I think we need to fix problems so they're sustainable for long-term, and this just continues to put little Band-Aids, and I know millions of dollars is going to some of these nonprofits, and I just don't see the change happening. So I would like long-term infrastructure to fix the housing problem, and then a short-term.
DJ.
Yeah, I think I need to jump in here too. I'd imagine this money, aside from the change we talked about for capital, for assets, to make a long-term change. If I combine that with assurances that I've received from nonprofits such as UCAN about their long-term goals, the many, many monies that have been allocated to them to help solve this problem, and assurances that funding wasn't the issue. We've had directors in here telling this board that getting their hands on funds is not the issue, right? But here we are faced with an ask from the same nonprofit demonstrating to us that funding is an issue. And now they're asking us for money again, and mirroring what Rob had said, I have some serious reserves in allocating this money given those things. So unless I could be convinced otherwise, I'm not comfortable with this.
I want to remind the council that this is not a request from UCAN. This is a reallocation of funds, and that a specific project has yet to be determined. So at this point, you would just be shifting fund from one category to another, is the question before us tonight, and then any funds to be distributed to a particular organization or project are yet to come. Was that a hand, Rick? Go ahead.
Well, I'm sensitive to the fact that we were looking at all these funds dedicated to capital improvements, which means something that can be used over and over again and not just here today and gone tomorrow. So it's a hard one. So thank you.
Valerie.
Well, I think the reality of why they switch things around is because, yes, there is a problem, and the reason that we haven't been able to do anything is we don't have the money. But this particular blot of money was meant to help people in transitional housing and whatever, which would be great. And there is transitional housing coming down the road. I mean, we do have, I guess, Cathedral Square, which is opening, and then we have some things in for, so there's been a lot of work in this community to get some of these things done. But I also have a lot of faith have worked with Path Group and seen what they are trying to do out there and how they are trying to help. And this is just saying, if the weather is bad, which I don't think there is a community of our size that does not have some sort of a warming shelter. I really don't think there is. So I don't think it's too much to ask to have something open in weather. If it's not used, it would go on and be used in the summer in the heat, as has been. And the things that they usually need the money with is security. It's not necessarily with people. And so basically, I think that they're stewards of that and would use it appropriately. And I just know we don't know what our winter is going to be like. But I do know that having some place for people to go when it's extremely cold and it is important. So I'm going to vote in favor.
The purpose of an emergency warming shelter is not really to provide stability or long-term shelter. It's not transitional housing. It's an emergency warming shelter to keep people out of the cold and the inclement weather on the worst nights of the winter. Valerie's correct that we don't have a shelter. We don't have an emergency shelter, and that is rather unprecedented here in the state among communities of our size. And I think that's the reason why Grants Pass got selected for the lawsuit that has been pending now for several years, because we don't have shelter. And I'm a little appalled at the way this seems to be rolling, that we're going to continue to be a community that doesn't help unhoused people on the coldest nights of winter. But if you don't have further discussion, it's time for the vote. Valerie, you made the motion to approve the reallocation of funds. How do you vote?
Yes.
Dwayne?
No.
Joel?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
No.
DJ?
No.
Brian?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-3. Thank you for doing the right thing. And those funds do remain to be allocated, so we will have to wait for a proposal. Next
Mayor,
up,
I object to you saying doing the right thing.
I get to
okay.
say what I want, and you get to say what you want.
Exactly, and
Okay.
you said that, and I'll say that I disagree. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
And you can get the last word if you'd like.
Okay. Next up, we have appointments to the Sustainability and Energy Action Committee. So this one's a little bit complicated here tonight, but we have 7 vacancies, 7 openings for this committee. And I don't want you to fill out your forms just yet here, because in this, the way that this breaks down, the committee would like to have a well-rounded committee, but you don't have to have an exact number of people representing each of these categories before you. And so they would like to have one from each category. And then under the student category, there's a kind of misallocation here. So Dave Kohler and Bob Scheller are actually RCC employees. They're not students. So I'm going to have you move them down to the at-large category instead of student category. And then I think, unless somebody has a better idea here, what we can do is select people for each of the other categories, and then see who's remaining and consider those people for the at-large category. Are you following? What was that? Oh, yeah, people have turned them in already. So I'll read the names and the categories that they're listed under, but yeah, we need to try to come up with 7 here at the end. So we have under Energy Efficiency Specialist, Brendan Collins has applied. Under Data Analyst, we have Reagan Ingman, David Kohler, Matthew Rosen. Under Solar and Energy Technology Specialist, Dustin Blue. Under Solid Waste or Recycling Experience, Horace Stadola. Under Student, Shannon Holst. And under At-Large, Dave Kohler, Robert Schaller, David Bartlett, Tom Bradbeer, and Dorothy Swain. And I guess just what I'd like to say is that if like under Data Analyst, there's 3 people, so we can pick one of those to fill the Data Analyst, and then we can consider the others, under at-large. So I don't think you just have to pick one of those 3 if you're interested in picking more. Rick?
So how did we come up with 7 openings instead of 10 or 12?
Yeah, that's what I'm proposing. So I think first, if we go through the top categories and pick one for each category, if you'd like, and then with the remaining people, we'll have a slate of, it looks like 7 left over, and then we can choose the at-large. Are you following? From whoever's left over. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't make the ballot here, so just to make sure, how about everybody pass your papers back so that everybody has the paper in front of you. That would be helpful. Does everybody have their paper now? Okay, very first thing at the bottom, under the student category, Dave Kohler and Bob Schaller are to be in the at-large category because they're not RCC students, they're RCC employees.
Which two again?
David Kohler and Robert Schaller. So Shannon Holst is an OSU student. So I think we could probably simplify this by recommending somebody for the data analyst spot, and then we'll move the other two to the at-large. So does anybody want to make a nomination for somebody in the data analyst position? Brian?
I would nominate Matthew Rosen. He was on the original task force.
Okay, seconded by Val. Any discussion on that? Okay, let's go ahead and vote on that position. Brian has nominated Matthew Rosen. How do you vote?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Okay, 7-0. That passes. Okay, that now move David Kohler, who's actually already down at the bottom because he was on here twice to begin with. So move him and Regan Inming down to the bottom. Okay, so what you have right now is under your at-large, you should have David Kohler, Robert Schaller, David Bartlett, Tom Bradbeer, Dorothy Swain, and Regan Inman. Is everybody with me? All right. You do not have to appoint, of course, the people who are at the top. So, but we do have one person, and Matthew's already been appointed. So we have one person. So I guess if anybody wants to make a motion to appoint any one or all of those people, let's take care of that, and then we will move forward with at-large. Brian?
Are you asking for a motion to nominate at-large positions?
No, let's do at-large second. Let's
Okay.
take care of whether you want to do, you can do them one at a time if you want, or you can do the whole slate of those other 4 categories. Brian?
So for the energy efficiency specialist category, I passed an email around from Tom Bradbeer explaining some nuance and a little bit more mud to murk up this situation. So I'm actually going to nominate David Kohler for the energy efficiency specialist category based on the rationale I received, if that's okay.
You can nominate whoever you like. Is there a second, DJ? All right. So is there any discussion on that? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Brian has nominated Dave Kohler under the Solar and Energy Technology Specialist category.
The energy efficiency specialist
Energy
category at the
efficient,
top.
first
Oh,
one.
at the top, sorry.
I know, that kind of throws off things, because now it's like, oh. I don't
Well,
remember
we'll
that.
move the other people to the bottom, okay, and then you can pick again. Any discussion on that? No. Okay, Brian, how do you vote? Dave
Yep.
Kohler as energy efficiency specialist?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Dwayne?
No.
Joel?
No.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob? Yeah, Rob?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-2.
Yeah, we move Brendan down here.
Okay, I'm gonna move Brendan to the bottom.
Jeez.
Okay. Solar and Energy Technology Specialist, we have Dustin Blue.
I move that we nominate Dustin Blue to Solar Energy Technology Specialist, as well as Horace Stadola for the Solid Waste or Recycling Experience position.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Rick. Any discussion on those two? Okay. Dustin Blue and Horace Stadola. Brian, you made the motion. How do you vote?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
Dwayne,
No.
Joel,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
DJ.
Yes.
All right, motion passes 6-1. Okay, we have student. Brian,
I nominate, or I move to nominate Shannon Holst for the student position.
is there a second from Valerie? Any discussion on that? All right, Brian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Valerie,
Yes.
Dwayne,
No.
Joel,
No.
Rick,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
DJ.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-2. All right, so now what I'm going to have you do is pass, you can write this on, we'll go through our like kind of normal process here, but I want to make sure you have all the right people at the bottom. So you should have Dave, not Dave anymore. Okay, Rob Scheller, David Bartlett, Tom Bradbeer, Dorothy Swain, Regan Engman, and Brendan Collins. Okay, and out of those, let me count up how many people we've already done. We've done 5 so far. We're going to pick 2. Okay, so select your top 2, pass it down this way, I'll tally them up.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I'd like to advocate for one of those candidates.
Yeah, sorry, we should have done that before we voted. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. I have experience with Dorothy Swain, and she is capable and willing and more than able to fill this position, and I'd like to publicly advocate for her on this task force.
Thank you. Well, it's not the official vote yet, it's just kind of this tally, and then you guys know how I do this, where I read them all out, but sorry, this is a little messy tonight. We don't usually have to do so many people at the same time. Okay. And now for the suspense, I'm going to do public comment while I tally these up so that you don't all have to sit there waiting for me, okay? So we're going to put this on pause for a moment. We're going to jump to public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for the public to address the city council on items not related to a public hearing or council action item before the council. The intent is to provide information that is pertinent to the city's jurisdiction. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the council as one body, not to individuals. At the conclusion of public comment, council will have an opportunity to respond. This meeting will proceed in an effective and courteous manner. Citizens and council members will be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free from slander, threats, or other personal attacks. Signs or placards, outbursts of applause, campaigning for public office, or other disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. If you have a question regarding any government-provided service or a current city policy, please contact the city manager's office in an attempt to resolve the matter. So when I call your name, you can come up to the podium and state whether or not, state your name and whether or not you're a city resident. And first up is David Dapper.
Hi, David Dapper, city resident. And I'm here about the nonprofits in the parks. And one thing, I know there's a vacant lot out by Spalding Road where that warming shelter money instead could be used to lay some infrastructure where we could allow people to camp and the nonprofits to take care of them and offer them the services they need in one place. And I believe it is a perfect opportunity to lay some infrastructure also in this lot, and it's away from neighborhoods and children and schools. And because when the nonprofits come to Tussing Park, I sent y'all a video of our street the day after when they're fighting and yelling at each other and having their carts all over the place, all up and down the street in front of our house. This would create a solution that I think would work for everyone, especially the nonprofits, because they could really come together in one place and provide all the services that are needed. And also, if we're giving money to some homeless situations, the Gospel Rescue Mission has someone going to give matching funds to build a center for senior folks who can't go out there and bust out a bunch of hours and work their way back from whatever is befallen them. And most of them aren't out there because they're out there hopped up on dope all day. They're out there because of a sequence of events, and those are the ones that we can help, and the Gospel Rescue Mission is a good place to donate some money that will be matched. Also, I'm wondering if we can add the picnic tables and the park benches to the 20-foot buffer rule, as a lot of these tents are set up right next to a park bench, so no one can really have a picnic there. Sunday we're out there, and there was a guy out there with a sickle over his thing, screaming at the stars and the sky and God knows what else. And also one thing I've noticed that it just baffles my mind is how we can allow homeless in a park next to a school. Can you imagine explaining to your 7-year-old why there's naked people dancing in the park on drugs? This seems like a no-brainer. Anyway, thank you.
Stephen Nelson.
Homelessness is the topic again. Recently, I met in the park with Councilor King. It wasn't planned, but we happened to be there at the same time, and we got in a discussion about homelessness in the park. And we both agreed that drug abuse, substance abuse, and addiction is a major issue in our city. With any homeless situation, if that isn't addressed, it never gets any better. You can put up a camp anywhere, but if you don't address the drug abuse and addiction issue, it's never going to get any better. I'm not opposed to feeding people in the park. There's a lot of very appreciative people who get helped by that ministry. But sometimes I have to admit, it feels like certain people are being enabled when you try to help them. If we don't deal with the addiction problem, we don't improve this. The food bank property, in my understanding, has acreage that isn't even being utilized. Am I correct in that or not? If I'm correct in that, why not move a center out there? You're never going to find a homeless camp within the city limits. It's never going to be acceptable. Move it out past the city limits, create a drug addiction facility at the center, address the most important problem, which is getting rid of the addiction problem. It will always have the poor. Even the Bible says that. But we can help it to a certain degree by dealing with the addiction problem. I believe if we set our goal on an addiction recovery facility, and then when the people in increments get to a point where they're healthy enough to learn skills, then it goes one step further. But they will never be able to do that if we don't deal with the addiction problem. So consider that, please. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wanted to speak during public comment tonight?
I don't know.
Del Aldridge, City of Grants Pass member. When you guys approved this little piece of paper, I was happy. I was seeing progress. But since this has come out, nothing's changed. When you've informed me last week that the parking in Riverside Park is acceptable, or camping in Riverside Park is acceptable in their cars, I was ready to quit. I'm done. I've been coming here since March, every meeting, and haven't missed a meeting yet. I want to thank the city council members that have shown up to our little meetings. I want to thank the police that show up just about every time one of you guys aren't there. They have to show up to get somebody under control. And I'm to the point, I'm just getting so frustrated that you're doing nothing new. Propane in the park, cans everywhere. Go check the trash cans. we need to do more than just this. We need to step back and look at the amount of people that have been arrested with warrants from all over, the people that are child molesters that are in the park. You don't know who's in the park. So why do we have schools in a park? They should take those schools and make them exempt. There's plenty of other spaces in other parks to make those 2 parks exempt from people sleeping in them around our kids. You want to take that responsibility of kids getting hurt when someone's in the park that you allowed them to be there? Make this rules go a little farther, bend a little more. You got the power. Okay? I think we also need to put some gates up, especially at Tessie Park. The traffic in and out of there at night is incredible. You got to stop these people from moving from park to park. And at night, go to the parks. They're almost empty. They're walking the city looking for who they can rip off. They are walking the streets looking. And I know it's very true. Please, get something new. Get something new on this. Work on it. Picnic tables. I went by Tessie Park today. There wasn't a car in the parking lot. Yet, the 3 picnic tables were full of stuff with 16 tents there. 16 tents. That's ridiculous. Just out of control. But nobody was there. They're out, checking other parks out. Work on this. Get your nonprofits under control. It's tiresome to see them walk around the park. We don't know if they're drug dealers or they're handing out whatever. I know they're making lots of money off this homeless situation, and we've got to make it better for all of us. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Jenny Stegmiller. I live in the county and own property in the city. In this season of Thanksgiving, I have to say thank you, Chief Hensman, for all of the hard work and the announcement that you made today about the successful raid and drug, I'm not sure of the politically correct way to say it, drug bust that you made. I strongly believe in the best defense is a good offense, and I've been praying that this would happen. I strongly believe that getting the drugs out of the park is going to be more of the same of what you just accomplished this week. So thank you. Thank you to your men and women in blue. We need more of that. I want to say thank you to all of you. I know sometimes I come across as a little frustrated with what's happening in the park, but I also know that the 8 of you are very similar to what we're all going to experience next week, sitting around the family table, kind of a dysfunctional family, but you work hard, and I get that. You're up against a lot, and I appreciate y'all. I agree with what Mr. Dapper said as far as the, pretty much most of what he said. Now I've forgotten what it was though, with getting the, I know some of you are strongly against doing an urban campground, but I feel like we can't wait for the Supreme Court, because if you look at cities like the city of Chico, who just cleaned out their parks because they opened up 1 or 2 urban campgrounds. They're just temporary campgrounds, and it wouldn't take much to find a lot, put up temporary showers, temporary porta potties, and the pallet shelters, and allow people to set up their tents. Although people don't belong living in tents, if that's what they want, let them do it. Take some of this ARPA funds money that you're now reallocating, and let's do a temporary urban campground while you're waiting for the Supreme Court to end this nightmare that we're all living in the parks. I would strongly appreciate if you could get mint out of our front yards at Riverside Park, out of Tussing Park, and put them somewhere else more appropriate, because they just draw so many homeless in cars coming to the park, and then they won't go away. So anyways, I sincerely appreciate and am grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
My name is Helen Cruz. I live in Josephine County. I used to be a homeless person. I am actively involved with the homeless community out there. And like this lady behind me was just saying, if you give them a place to go, they will go. Okay? That's all they want. They don't want to be in the parks. I talk to people day in and day out. They do not want to be where they are. Okay? If you gave them, options to go to where they feel they won't be harassed by the officers every single day, they will go there. and they will be okay. They don't want to be in the parks. You know, some of them, yeah, I get that. They're vigilante or whatever. But at the same time, I mean, there's this couple out there that they're on walkers. They're elderly. And I see them every single day. And it breaks my heart. Okay, just because I'm not out there living them like they were or they are, I used to be out there. And I have a good rapport with these people out there. You know, and some of them are not great. I'm going to say that. But there's ones out there that do deserve the help. If you just give them a place to go, they'll go.
Next.
Catherine, Hamilton County. I was at Tussing Park on Sunday when the gentleman was flailing around with the Grim Reaper knife he had. He had this sickle, this scythe, whatever the correct term is, I don't know, but it was pretty large. That's really not what you want to see when you're at a park. The officer that came out said he didn't want to violate his constitutional rights by removing it because it was not illegal to have a weapon in the park. No offense, Chief. You guys have been great. There's been so much positive done with law enforcement, thank you, but I'm confused because I thought they couldn't have weapons in the park, and this thing was like this, that he was flinging around. Then he turned around and he punched his truck. This is not a stable person. These people need somewhere to go, like this woman just said. You guys spent $270,000, wasn't it, for a bathroom for Baker Park. Find a place to put these people. This is not fair to us. It's not fair to them. And again, where's all our 110 rehab money? I guess that was a pipe dream that we were promised on the petition or on the ballots that the people voted for. I didn't, but you know, not everybody's going to agree. You guys have all your own personalities, you have all your own beliefs, you have all your own thoughts. Not everybody's going to agree. You guys were voted in by people that I felt you guys would do what's best for Grants Pass. Come up with a legal option. You don't have to like it. Not everyone's going to like everything. Come up with a legal option. Put these people somewhere. You're concerned about them getting cold? Hey, it's in November. This might have been something to consider before it's getting cold, but okay, here we are. Get them out of the parks. There were 10 tents in the park at Fruitdale today. This is not right. These kids need to be safe. You're sitting on a powder keg. Something's going to happen. If somebody was not happy with this person wielding the sickle the other day, it could have turned nasty. It's not safe. It's not right. You guys spend money on these toilets, spend money on a lot. Figure this out. You guys have a lot somewhere, I'm sure. Put them somewhere. Thank you.
Mike Pelfrey again, city resident. First, I want to thank the chief as well as our fire. So police and fire in our community, they are, I'm sure, extremely overwhelmed, but I did watch the press conference today, and it does make you proud to know that you've got a strong police department that are backing you, so thank you for keeping us safe. Now, Saturday was Veterans Day. I'm a veteran. I don't know if anybody else in the room is a veteran, but Saturday was Veterans Day. And we got one day to celebrate, one day. And yet I think it was June, our city chose to proclaim Pride for an entire month. Now, I have nothing against someone's whatever preferences. We all know that the state that we live in is beyond twisted. I mean, we actually are attracting people from other states to come here and have surgery done to them that would not be allowed any other place. And yet we want to celebrate an entire month for what I consider an ideology that, for the most part, doesn't agree with the majority of American citizens. I didn't see any type of announcements from the city of Grants Pass. I didn't see any kind of celebration in regards to Veterans Day, unless I missed it, but I didn't see anything. We did, personally, we had a celebration on Saturday in downtown Grants Pass, and we had a vigil, and we celebrated our veterans. But you know what? They deserve more than a day. So I would ask you that when this time comes around next year, and you're presented an opportunity to proclaim something that most Americans don't agree with, if you don't believe me, go talk to all the pastors within our community except for one, and we know which one that is. But the point of the matter is our veterans need to be honored, and next year when you do are offered a proclamation, I hope you think twice on it and give some serious thought as to who you're really honoring. Last but not least, we've talked about the nonprofits. I think that if we're going to be handing out money, our money, that the nonprofits need to stand in line and show some results. You know the movie when it said, "Show me the money"? No. Show us the results. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? All right, we'll close public comment and give the council an opportunity to address public comment if they want to. And I'll start off by saying that there is a process for proclamations, and we've been over this before, but proclamations can be done at the request of citizens or local groups. And so you're supposed to submit a request at least 30 days in advance, and you can contact the city clerk to get more information about that if you would like to request a proclamation in the future. And I'll also say that I just agree with several of the people who spoke tonight that the unhoused people definitely need somewhere to go, because our parks are not the appropriate place. They are in neighborhoods, they are in schools. I feel like I've been saying this nonstop for 3 years now, but we really need to establish some more appropriate places for people to go, because they shouldn't be in our parks. So I think you have the right idea, and I get to say that too. DJ.
Sure. I want to clarify a frustrating misunderstanding with the circumstances of our community. I hear often that if we build a shelter, then we can get people out of our parks, and that is just simply not true. We see other communities that have had moderate success making those kind of moves. The difference between this community and those communities doing so things is we are under a federal injunction that explicitly prohibits that kind of action, right? So therein comes the wisdom and logic behind waiting for the federal courts to satisfy where this is going to crumble. Whereas it's true, if we did have a warming shelter or an urban campground, we could expect utilization of those services. But we all need to understand that that will have zero implications on enforceability of homeless camping in our parks. And that is a circumstance of this community until a federal court determines otherwise. It's a nuanced difference, but there is a misunderstanding. Let me say it again. It is not, if you build it, we can enforce people out of our parks. That's simply not true. And it's really important that we all understand that as a community. This issue is far more complex than that statement of, if you build it, they will leave our parks, or we can enforce them to leave our parks. So please understand that nuanced difference.
Valerie.
Thank you, DJ. And I will also add to that, part of the issue is that people who have successful or have had campgrounds that work, they have to be managed. You can't just open up and go out and buy a plot of land and say you have to go out there. As DJ said, we don't have that choice. They could go out there if they wanted, but they don't have to. So that is the way it is. And the managed part of it is important. because they're not successful unless you have somebody operate them and provide the services. And that is something that the city does not have the money to do. That is not a city operation. It never has been. So that's why UCAN and the nonprofits are the ones that step into that role and do that. But even UCAN said they would not manage an urban campground in our community, and we don't know who would. So without management, you can't do it. So like I said, we do know, and I agree, Steve, drug addiction is huge, and that's why when we did have the money, we spent it to On Track, which does drug addiction and giving them beds to hold people to be able to get them into that, into drug treatment, because that's if we don't address that, then it's a hopeless case.
Dwayne.
Yeah, I just read some things as I'd hope people will start supporting some of these groups that are actually have long-term results and fixing things. Again, I'm going to talk about the mission and their Hope Village for the elderly. I'm going to say that all the time. That's a great thing we should be. I hope people can donate to it. They can. It's long-term housing for somebody. That's what we need, not some temporary thing that's but a Band-Aid. I mean, long-term. I would hope we could do that. Drug addiction, we know we've been robbed by, Measure 110 and getting what we need. They've been really slow. And the parks, the school parks, honestly, those parks belong to the schools. They can take them back at any time. That's the way I look at it. They can take them back. They're on a lease. If we broke the lease, take them back, manage them. We could save money that way. Then they can kick out the homeless people they want out. That's their park. I don't know. But those are not our parks. We're in an injunction. And as long as we're in the injunction, we have to do what the injunction says. So, and Jenny, thank you for thanking law enforcement. I didn't watch it, but I read a lot about it and, saw a lot of pictures and stuff. And I'm really proud that the men and women that what they did, like 18 months, I think it was. So, yeah, we should be proud of our law enforcement here. They did a great job, and hopefully they find more drugs and get them off the street and put the bad people away. That's the way I see it. Let's start convicting the people that are causing these problems, because that's what our problem is. We have a lot of bad actors out there, and then we can help the good people that want help. I know what Helen's talking about. There's some older people and Tussing and some other places, and I know some people that know them, and I would think that again goes back to let's find them some stable housing somehow. They only make, if you make $1,200 a month, there's no way you're finding a place to live in this town. There's just no way. So we need to find a way to give long-term housing for people that can't work. I would be 100% supportive of people that can't work. Some 70-year-old's not going to get another job and be a careerist. That's not going to happen. So let's help those people. Let's help people that are in a walker or a wheelchair. I mean, I think that we could all agree that those are people we can help that are not drug addicts and people causing problems. They're people that are just, I don't really want to characterize what their mistakes or how they got to the predicament. I don't know, but we could fix that. And the veterans, and Mike, we should thank veterans. I'm a veteran, so I spoke at 2 events last week, and I met a lot of brave people that were in wars of Korea, Vietnam, Iraq and Afghanistan. I had lunch with a man from Vietnam that was in Vietnam that's dying of cancer, and I feel that's a history. That's our history. They're going away, and me spending 21 years in the military, I really admire those people that served our country and allow us to speak at this podium freely, even if I disagree with them. And I think that's part of the American dream, and I hope we can continue. Even if I disagree with someone, they have a right to speak their piece, and whatever. We can disagree to disagree and live on another day. Thank you.
Brian.
Yeah, thanks everyone for speaking tonight. Everyone up here says that we want the homeless out of the parks, and yet the homeless are still in our parks, and we have not taken action to address that. So, and we've been saying it for years. So at some point you have to, think, well, are we just saying it just so people don't hate us, or do we actually mean it? And yeah, we're under an injunction, and we are very limited in what we can do. But there's a little more nuance when DJ spoke about if we have someplace else for them to go, we can't force them to go there. That's true. However, if we have somewhere else for them to go, some of them will go there. The problem in the parks will be alleviated, it will be mitigated, it will be less than it is right now, which is an improvement. So for that reason, I think we should still work towards having a location. And I've said this before, Dell and other people have brought up the kids walking by on their way to school. My daughter's in 8th grade. She goes to North Middle School. She walks through Gilbert Creek every day and has since 5th grade. So I'm right there with you. And if something happens, it's going to be really bad. So I hope council can remember that and remember that we do have the ability to take action and affect change on this issue. So I hope that we can keep working towards that. We've been trying for 3 years, and something's got to give eventually, right?
Anybody else? All right, let's get the emails and then we'll jump back to the committee appointment.
So there was just one email with several comments on last Monday's meeting.
Thank you. All right. If you can think back to a few moments ago when we were talking about Sustainability and Energy Action Committee, and we have 2 vacancies for at-large positions. And so we had 5 counselors supporting Tom Bradbeer. And that was from Rob, Joel, Brian, DJ, and Rick. We had 5 counselors supporting Dorothy Swain. That was from Rob, Joel, Valerie, Brian, DJ, and Rick. That's 6 actually on that one. Sorry, I miscounted. And then we have one nod for Brendan Collins from Valerie, 1 nod for David Bartlett from Dwayne, and 1 for Robert Schaller from Dwayne. And with that, discussion. DJ.
I move to appoint Tom Bradbeer and Dorothy Swain to the Sustainable Energy Action Advisory Committee.
Seconded by Val. Any discussion on that? All right, DJ, you made the motion. How do you vote?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Dwayne?
No.
Joel?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. All right. And that wraps up the task force appointments there. Committee, I guess it is now, committee appointments. Okay, moving on. Next up on the agenda is consent agenda, and these are items of such routine nature without controversy that they may be approved in a single action. And Valerie, if you would please read the consent agenda.
This is a consent agenda for the November 15th, 2023 meeting. Item A, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the construction of Meadowood Reservoir, project number WA 4971. B, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into the agreements for the purchase and uplifting of 4 Chevy Tahoes for Grants Pass Police. C, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter an agreement for the purchase and uplifting of 1 pursuit-rated Chevy Tahoe for Grants Pass Fire Rescue Command staff. Motion approving the minutes of the city council meeting from November 1st and several other committees, the Collaborative Economic Development Committee's September 28th meeting, Urban Area Planning Commission meeting September 27th, Tourism Advisory Committee September 5th, Tourism Advisory meeting of October 3rd, and the Housing Advisory Committee meeting of September 15th, 2023. And with that, I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Second from Rick. All right. Voting on the consent agenda, Valerie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-1, or excuse me, 7-0. How about matters from mayor, council, and staff? Council, Rick?
I'd like to make a motion for consideration of Monday's vote authorizing public safety survey for public safety funding.
Seconded by Dwayne. All right, hang on just a minute. Okay, okay. It's always nice when you guys give me a heads up when you're going to do something, since I have to facilitate. So the process for, since we have a motion on the table to reconsider Monday's vote, would be to first discuss whether or not we want to reconsider it and take a vote on that. And then I think it would come up on an agenda, or tonight we would vote immediately? Okay. Discussion then. Rick, lead the way.
After Monday, I felt with the result being with the deadlock and it going forward for the survey and then going out to the mailing for that input, I was not comfortable with spending the money for the mail-out survey. So the council never took time to discuss and finalize themselves the direction, and therefore, if I'd had that before me, or actually after the fact, I was not comfortable with that, so I would have voted no. And I would like to hear from the rest of the council what as well. Thank you.
Anyone else want to discuss? Valerie?
Well, I just want to discuss, I just want to have the discussion, and I'm assuming this just general fund survey mailer is the actual costs for what that mail-in would be?
Yeah, so this was actually going to be on matters from staff. But what you have in front of you on the dais is information that JC compiled to kind of give council an overall picture of what the cost of the mailer would be for the survey. So in the table on the top half, you're looking at about $13,560 to send out the mailer itself. Now, if you're going to include return envelopes, that'll increase the cost by another $1,100, bringing the total up to $14,660. If you were then to add postage for return mailing, so one of those envelopes that says no postage required if mailed within the United States, to enable individuals to mail it back without purchasing their own postage, that would add another $9,240, bringing up the total to about $24,000 for the whole survey to be mailed out and then returned.
Yeah, I'm just going to add a little bit of details on top of that too. So each one of those selections kind of has a little description underneath and the potential timing of when we would get that survey information back. So we just wanted to be transparent that the first two is going to be super tight to try and make that December 18th workshop because of the holidays. Again, if you're going to want to do an actual, the availability for a return postage, that makes it harder to have that December 18th. And so the window shrinks as far as what we can provide as far as potential data. So again, anytime you give mail, you need lead time to go out to the public as well as coming back. And so that, again, the window gets tighter. And so some of the recommendation, if you're going to put in a return envelope and or pay for the postage for a return envelope, those timelines kind of extend.
Dwayne.
I was a no on Monday, and I was advocating this was going to take another 8 weeks, and now we're looking at February 5th, which is almost another month now. I am still a no, and I want to still stand on that.
Right now we're voting on whether to reconsider.
Oh, okay.
Is there discussion on the motion to reconsider? DJ?
Sure. So the question on the table is, how does the community want to pay for public safety? I want that answer. Everybody wants this answer. But the foundation of my opposition to this is, from a statistical standpoint, this is not a good way to get that question answered, right? Your best friend when you need to crunch data is to make sure that you are collecting good data. I don't trust that this is a good way to collect that data. This boils it down to a grandstanding effort to attempt a perception that we're trying to get that question answered. This is not a good way to do it. You add in the cost and you add in the timeline, I'm still not okay with it.
Rob?
So a question for JC on the cost. So the return postage, that's an amount that's used whether or not, once the envelopes are printed, whether or not a single one gets returned, which it would still be $9,000?
No, so that is in the event that all 14,000 return it.
I
So
see.
again, if everybody does participate, that would be the absolute maximum cost for that.
Thank you.
Brian?
Since this is just the vote for reconsideration, will there be another opportunity to discuss on a subsequent vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the move to reconsider? All right, it was Rick who made the motion. How do you vote? Just on reconsideration.
I vote yes.
Rob?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Brian?
No.
Valerie?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. Okay, so now on the decision, which was to send out a survey on the public safety funding, that is before us again. Go ahead, Augustus.
Yeah, so that's the prior motion that was voted on by the city council. So at this point, council can remake that motion, you can amend that motion, or you can vote to kill it, or yeah, those are your real options there. And then it'll take as many motions as it takes to either come to a resolution amongst yourselves or to kill the motion altogether.
Discussion, Brian.
Yeah, I just had a question for staff around this sheet of information on this. Some of the timeline stuff is a lot longer than we were told on Monday. We were kind of given the impression that, you know, this could get out by the end of the week and we could have the results back by December 18th. And it's looking close to impossible for that to actually be the situation now. Is that accurate?
So I think we missed ironing out a few details. So we didn't discuss actually how the participants would get the information back to it if it were to come non-electronic. So there wasn't ever any discussion on non-electronic. And so giving the mail out is fine. It's giving it lead time for it to come back that becomes part of the issue.
And if I may, I believe that the conversation on Monday did center around it being a lot faster if it were an electronic means. Just because if we're talking about putting these in a special mailer, you're going to spend time, you're going to need lead time to put those in the special mailer, and then you're going to have them mailed out to everybody. And given that we're coming up on a holiday weekend here pretty soon and the holiday season in general, you're going to have a lot less engagement either way. So that, I think that staff was talking about the quick turnaround in terms of the electronic form of that survey.
Okay. I was under the impression, and maybe I was misunderstood, that we would be doing the survey, we would be sending out a physical letter, and then we would be getting responses electronically. I didn't think that people were going to have to actually fill out physical things and send them back, and we'd be tallying them manually.
That is where the conversation is centralized around. However, there were other comments made during that discussion about access to electronics. So if we weren't going to potentially field those, would we be fielding the actual hard mail-in copies as well?
Yeah, in any case, staff did not have the clarity as to how the mailer was going to operate, whether that was going to be a hard copy survey with an electronic answers back, or a hard copy out with a hard copy back. That wasn't actually included in the motion on Monday. And so we were compiling this information, actually ready to present it with matters from staff. So that's kind of staff's understanding about how this went down. So we're kind of hoping that council will give clarity on that process.
Okay.
And I just want to confirm as well that December 18th was not we never said for sure that we would have a December 18th deadline. There was just a meeting on December 18th. And so it was requested that if we could talk about it on December 18th rather than the first meeting of January, that we would. But I also remember saying that I wasn't sure how fast the survey could turn around. And so we were going to look at that, after staff got a chance to talk about it. Dwayne?
Yeah, I'd be in favor of just scrapping this, and hopefully Rob could bring in those people about the beverage tax maybe on the 18th. I'd be all for that, and listen to them how that works and keep moving forward.
Brian?
I actually have a question. Well, it's for any counselor, but DJ brought it up regarding the survey not being the best statistical, reliable way to get feedback. And I'm just wondering what other ways would be better than a survey that we can utilize for this decision to get as much public feedback as possible.
DJ?
Sure. I think information campaigns are our best friend. Going back to council's vote on whether or not to implement a utility fee structure, at least from my perspective when it came out, was that we hadn't done an exhaustive information campaign. We haven't thoroughly vetted all the revenue options, and we weren't quite ready to do that. Since then, we have thorough information on the website. We've done public information forums, and I think that is the best way. Information is key, and putting the information out there in the first point so that people can give us an informed decision on all the vehicles. They all have our phone number, they all have our email addresses, they all know when our meetings are. That's how you get the good information.
Valerie?
Yeah, as we know, and as Karen mentioned, we've already gotten some emails regarding it. I've gotten personal phone calls about people giving me information on what they want to do. And I realize that that's somewhat limited, but those tend to be the people that have been watching and paying attention, that know what we're talking about and how dire we are under the circumstances. So, I've always gone for a forum. I think it's a good idea. I agree that I would rather spend the money to bring in the people on the restaurant tax to just find out all the details about it, because that's one thing that we've kind of talked around, but the more details we can have about how it runs and what that means and what that looks like, that's important information that we learn, and people who are paying attention will be watching as well. So to me, spending that kind of money on a survey that I don't think is going to really give us the information that we don't already have, I'd rather have it be to educate and inform about what each of them means. So that's why I would just as soon not do this survey and have the information about the beverage and food tax, prepared food tax, or also about the sales tax, and get specifics. So then we can have a forum and have all that information out there and make a decision.
Further discussion? Brian?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, this is one of Joel's famous sayings, it's not one or the other, it can be and. We don't have to only push out information and have a forum and get those people in. Most of the people in this community don't know we're talking about this. We hear from such a small segment of people, and we hear from the same people over and over and over. Most people we don't ever hear from. Most people don't know that this is coming. And while getting an information campaign going that way is very important, we also need the information to come back this way to us. And a forum is not sufficient for that. It just isn't, and I've already explained that. I don't need to do that again. I just did it Monday. And I'm not worried about, in the scheme of the city budget, this amount of money is inconsequential when we're trying to get feedback from the citizens on something that's going to affect all of their pocketbooks, some more than others, some more than any one of us up here. And I really wanted to have that feedback so I could make a decision that represents what the people want and what the people are most comfortable with. And without this survey, it's gonna be very hard for me to feel like I have feedback from a broad swath of the community.
Rob?
I just want to point out that if on a survey like this, if we got 20% response rate, which we may get, that the total figure here, rather than the 23,900, would be closer to 16,000, because we wouldn't be using all the postage, the return postage. So rather than looking at this as a $23,900 expense, I think we should be looking at it more as about a $16,000 expense.
All right, so the motion that we were considering is just whether to conduct a survey, and it's actually not, doesn't specify even anything about a mailer or electronic. So is there further discussion on the motion to conduct a survey? Joel?
Well, one of the things that struck me was the conversation has come a long way in a year since we had our strategic planning last year, and we're actually discussing not whether to discuss public safety funding, but what is the public involvement associated with the public safety funding. And I congratulate all of us for moving that along. It never seems to be in a timely manner, but I guess that's democracy, or not a democracy, but a representative democracy. As we move forward, I've never seen government at any level do a survey about tax, whether it's the state of Oregon or the federal government, or I suppose some cities have. And I'm not saying that it's a bad or good idea, but I've never seen such a survey on any decision by the government to do that as part of public involvement. I would encourage us to, money is tight, and if we do a survey, that we do it electronic only. And if somebody needs help with it, that they can get help from their kids or from somebody, or they can request help and not do and also that will take care of the timely manner. The other thing I would encourage us, that our public involvement shouldn't be a letter in the mail or a electronic survey. It should be listening to people and meeting them face to face, because that's the most valuable feedback, and especially by those that are feel like they've been perhaps unfairly picked on or whatever. So, thank you.
Okay. Augustus just pointed out to me that you also have the ability to amend Monday's motion to conduct a survey. So that's a possibility as we're talking about this. Rob?
So I think when Rick first brought this up, I think that you said, I'm not sure, I think you said that you were uncomfortable about the cost involved.
Correct.
So if that cost were potentially, what we're hearing now is, we could decide on an electronic survey where the cost would be probably very minimal. There would be people that might not have access to computers and so forth to be able to answer. And I think, as Brian pointed out, it's not either or, Joel, right? It's hopefully both. You're face-to-face, that I know seems to be very important to you, as well as potentially creating a broader way for people to respond. But that cost could be, I guess, negligible. Do we have from JC or someone else, if we were to do an electronic survey, what costs would be involved for staff and otherwise?
So we already own the software to do the electronic version. The plan, as the recommendation came forward on Monday, would be to blast it out via Facebook. There is the opportunity for people to vote more than once. However, there are data points within the collection software that we can figure out that the same people are doing the same voting over and over again, and come with different statistics to minimize those repetitive votes.
If we end up with 70,000 votes, we may have a problem.
Brian?
Yeah, no, I agree with Joel that We've never, government usually doesn't do a survey for things like new taxes. Usually they put it on the ballot. Usually people actually get to vote on it. So the survey was my effort at the next best thing to that, to at least get the feedback so we can make the best informed decision. And since we're kind of a little bit on the fence here, I'm not totally sure what the procedure is for reconsideration and where we're at, but is there already a motion made, or may I make a motion?
You're free to make a motion. There is no motion on the table. It was just, you now have the discussion about the previous motion, but you're able to vote on the previous motion, or you can amend the prior one.
Okay, well,
Which
correct
was
me.
just to conduct a survey with no parameters.
Okay, well then I guess what I would do is I would move to amend that motion to have the survey be conducted electronically in order to alleviate the cost issue.
And would you include a mailer of any sort or purely online?
I think in the efforts of getting it passed, I would say purely electronic.
Okay, so now the motion is to conduct an electronic survey with no mailer. Is there a second? Seconded by Rick. Discussion on that motion. DJ.
I don't want to get into the scientific basis of statistics, but in order to get significant results, you need a truly randomized selection process. And by winnowing down to any sort of populace of virtually any kind, introduce what's called bias. And the foundation of my opposition to this survey is on a statistical basis, in that you want a question answered, and we all truly want it answered, but unless you take the appropriate steps to be statistically significant, the answer will not be significant. And I'll say it again, your best friend when you're gathering data is to make sure that you gather good data. Otherwise, you're forced in determining and introducing another bias into what is the good data and what is the bad data. And that's the foundation of my argument against this survey.
Further discussion? Valerie?
I just have a question. Did we agree with option 3? Is that what we did agree on to begin with? I just want to make sure if I'm
Yes.
going to do an electronic one, that is
Yes.
the one that.
That's correct. So what you agreed on with option 3 was to reintroduce the figures from within option 3, funding options 1, 2, and 3, and to leave the last 3 options without figures.
Brian?
I just wanted to say that, staff said on Monday that, certainly no survey is perfect. No survey is 100% reliable. But we do surveys all the time, and we take those results under advisement. We don't let the survey make the decision for us, but we take that as one data point in our decision-making. The results of the survey are non-binding. Council is free to do whatever they like. And we all know that those results will not be perfect, but it will be another data point so we can make the best informed decision.
Rick? No? Any further discussion? Valerie?
I will just say that though in the past I voted against it, I think having had it printed in the newspaper that there would be one, and having people now looking for one, I think it might behoove us to have one, an electronic one, because I think people, my fear is if you turn it out there and people enthusiastically think, great, we're listening and that's good. I want to listen to my constituency, but then if we don't choose that, is that going to come back and bite us to say, well, we told you what we wanted and then you didn't give us that. So there's always a little bit of that. But under the circumstances of saying that there was going to be some sort of survey, I will take that and say that, yes, I will vote for electronic one because it'll be fast, and I will use that as one important piece of information.
Further discussion? Joel?
So regardless of the survey question, and I think it's very important to follow through on the face-to-face and have that part of our public participation plan and not just do it all electronic. I think that would be a serious mistake in terms of a sense of community and who we are, and as we move to the future, especially on a decision like this that affects people's pocketbooks. We need to do that face-to-face as well. So I would anticipate that as part of the public participation plan, and the electronic survey could be part of that as well.
Further discussion? All right, so the motion is to conduct an electronic survey with no mailer. And Brian, you made the motion. How do you vote?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
Dwayne?
No.
Joel?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
DJ?
No.
Motion passes 5-2. All right, we are in mayor and council comments. Does anybody else have a comment? Nope. All right, anything from staff tonight? JC?
The CPIU information came out yesterday, and you have this on the dais. This is the mock-up that will go out to all the residents within the December utility bill to show the old rate next to the potential new rate. This is the second year we've done this. Normally, the rates have been so small that it's kind of been negligible, but this is another quite large rate, and so we wanted to be very transparent with you as a council and make sure that you had this information before it went out to the public.
Thank you. Chief, can I put you on the spot to give a quick update on what you covered in your press conference this morning?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a busy 18 months for Grants Pass PD, who have a detective assigned to the task force within the DEA locally. This was a major collaboration. This is why partnerships are so important in our community. And they closed out, and I'm talking about they, meaning a complement of DEA and local law enforcement, closed out an 18-month investigation that seized a significant amount of firearms, over 20, over 100,000 lethal doses of fentanyl, along with methamphetamine and other tools to aid in criminal activity. It was a massive investigation. A lot of people were involved, and I'm just proud of local law enforcement. It was a good day.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a big operation. More? Oh, did you have something on the police? Okay. Joel? Okay, well, that's
You want to
really-
follow with your question first?
If it's law enforcement, just finish that first.
Oh, okay. So I just want to thank the police for their classes that they've had with citizens. I went to the honor ceremony last night, and there were probably, I don't know, 30 people there that went through the class. And it's a statement of community relations and a dedication, I think, from the chief and the department to community policing. And the people that were there really understood what a policeman goes through on a daily basis, and it was very valuable to them, and they appreciated it as well. And I would encourage other people, because that's not going to be the last class, I understand, as we move forward, that other people take that. One of the things that one of the participants said to me as they rode along with the police, it is amazing the amount of time that's taken up with the homeless issue. That if the homeless issue didn't exist, there would be a lot more time to be proactive rather than reactive. And then another particular instance was where a police officer went from giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on a 2-month-old that wasn't successful, and in the next, and after going through that emotional experience, in the next 30 minutes was dealing with 2 people on meth in the park. A couple that were mad at each other, were going to hurt each other, and it was very volatile. And that was just 2 consecutive calls. That is an example of what our policemen do every day. So I just want to thank you.
Dwayne, and I'll just quickly remind you guys, we are in comments from staff, but go ahead. Oh, okay.
Sorry, can you tell us how much more revenue is going to be brought in by this, or more taxes going to be on the people with this 4.73?
So per our municipal code, each of the enterprise funds plus transportation and special revenue fund are tied to a CPIU that is calculated between October and November every year. However, there's a couple fees that are flat that do not have an increase, in the water treatment plant replacement fee being one. So generically speaking, most of the fees will be about 4.73 across the board. However, there are in Muni Code ones that do or have stopped with any increases.
That didn't answer my question. How much more taxes on the people is this going to be?
So
from what it is now to add 4.73, is there a total?
So underneath the orange section on the first page, there's an example of a typical residential customer.
That's just monthly. How much for the year? Like, so what I'm trying to get is how much more taxes are people going to pay or fees on their bills already?
$50 a year, give or take.
Not counting what we're looking at already, so.
It looks like the residential example, $3 a month for 12 months, about $36 in total for a year.
All right, thank you.
Wade.
Hey, so I think you guys know that we just finished up our digester heat exchanger project down at the water restoration plant, and it is working really well. And so it's just in general a process that harvests all the methane produced by the digester and uses it to run a boiler heater that heats the digester. And it's a great project that really ties in well with your appointments to the CEEP committee today. On November 30th from noon to 1, the Energy Trust of Oregon is going to be there presenting a $130,000 rebate check to the city of Grants Pass for energy efficiency. And we'd like to invite some members from council to come down for a good photo opportunity. So whoever is interested, come on down. Noon to 1 on November 30th. I don't think they have one of the big checks. It's a small one, I think, but we asked for it.
Thank you.
You bet I did. Yeah.
Anything further?
I just had one more comment regarding the investigation. I wanted to make sure that the council knows that the DEA were just instrumental in this investigation and sent a lot of agents down here. So I'm just forever grateful and thankful for that. But also, too, when I talk about partnerships, and we talk about partnerships a lot around here, we reached out far and wide. Klamath Falls, Bend, our Oregon State Police partners, our local partners, Jackson County. I mean, there was a lot of people here, and I don't have my notes here to go over, but it was a huge op. So it was a pretty great ending to this investigation with over 20 really bad people that were taken into custody, and I think it's really going to impact, and I think it's actually, I know, it's going to save lives in Josephine and Jackson County. So I'm real pleased with this investigation, and it was a Grants Pass police detective who was the lead investigator in this case. That's not going to be on the news, and that's okay. It is a team effort, but I wanted to share with the council because I'm kind of proud of our guy. But also, too, I did want to mention the Citizens Police Academy that Councilor King brought up. This is a collateral duty from one of our police officers. We used to have a prevention officer. Of course, budget cuts, we had to take that away. Actually, at the time, I think it was more of an operational decision for me. But Officer Ken Fraunfelter, shout out. He's been doing this for a few years, and he absolutely rocks it. So I just wanted to give a shout out to him.
Thank you. Anything else tonight? All right. Well, next up on our agenda, we still have an executive session tonight. So if I could please have a motion to move into executive session. Val?
I make a motion that we end regular session and move into executive session.
Seconded by Rick. All in favor of adjourning into executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right. The council will now meet in executive session for the purpose of discussing